The War of the Roses. What if I told you that a forgotten English civil war, full of madness, vanished princes, broken kings, and bloody betrayals, helped shape the modern world long before America even existed? This is the shocking true story of the Wars of the Roses, a brutal family feud that tore England apart for 30 years and ended an entire royal dynasty. In 1437, Henry VI, the only son of the legendary warrior king Henry V, came of age and began ruling England in his own right. But unlike his father, the hero of Agincourt, Henry VI was gentle, indecisive, and deeply unsuited for power. Hoping to secure peace with France after decades of fighting, he married Margaret of Anjou in 1445, a French noblewoman, under the Treaty of Tours. Instead of peace, England got humiliation. By 1449, war with France resumed, and in August 1453, England lost the 100 Years' War entirely. When the final news arrived, Henry VI suffered a catastrophic mental breakdown, becoming unresponsive and unable to rule for more than a year. England had a king, but no government. With royal authority collapsing, powerful nobles began settling disputes with private armies. Two branches of the royal House of Plantagenet, Lancaster, symbolized by a red rose, and York, a white rose, turned England into a battlefield. In 1455, the first fighting erupted. What followed became known as the Wars of the Roses, a series of violent, chaotic civil wars lasting 30 years. Although the battles were often small by modern standards, the damage was enormous. Law and order broke down. Kings were made and unmade. Even Parliament fled London. The royal court relocated to Coventry, turning it into England's de facto capital, an astonishing sign of how weak the crown had become. In 1461, Henry's cousin Edward, Duke of York, seized his moment. After defeating Lancastrian forces at the Battle of Mortimer's Cross, Edward marched on London and declared himself King Edward IV. Henry VI was deposed, the first English king ever overthrown by another with a strong hereditary claim. But the nightmare wasn't over. In a stunning reversal, Edward IV was himself overthrown in 1770 by his former ally, Richard Neville, the powerful Earl of Warwick, remembered by history as the Kingmaker. Warwick restored Henry VI to the throne, proving that in this era, kings ruled only as long as nobles allowed them to. The restoration lasted just 6 months. Edward IV returned from exile, defeated Warwick in battle, and had him killed. Edward reclaimed the throne in 1771. Henry VI was imprisoned in the Tower of London, and soon after, he died there under suspicious circumstances. Few doubted he was murdered. Edward IV ruled until 1483, dying suddenly at only 40 years old. But his death triggered one of the darkest mysteries in English history. Edward's rightful heir was his 12-year-old son, Edward V. Before he could be crowned, the king's brother, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, made a shocking claim. Edward IV's marriage was illegal, making all his children illegitimate. Parliament accepted the claim. Richard crowned himself King Richard III. Edward V and his 10-year-old brother were locked in the Tower of London. They were never seen again. History remembers them as the Princes in the Tower, one of the most haunting, unsolved disappearances of all time. Whether Richard III ordered their deaths remains one of history's greatest controversies. In the summer of 1485, after 30 decades of bloodshed, a final challenger emerged. Henry Tudor, the last surviving male Lancastrian, returned from exile in France and landed in Wales with a small army. On August 22, 1485, Henry faced Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Richard III charged directly into combat and was killed, the last English king to die on the battlefield. Henry Tudor became King Henry VII, ending the Wars of the Roses and founding the Tudor dynasty, which would later produce Henry VIII and Queen Elizabeth I. To heal the nation, Henry married Elizabeth of York, uniting the red and white roses into one symbol, the Tudor rose. The Wars of the Roses were more than an English power struggle. They reshaped monarchy, weakened feudal nobles, strengthened central authority, and laid the groundwork for the modern state. Long before the American Revolution, this violent struggle showed the danger of unchecked power and how fragile nations become when leadership fails. And it all began with a king who lost his mind and a crown that slipped from royal hands.